A very good morning and good evening, everyone. Welcome back. So our last session, we were learning some Linux commands. We'll continue the same thing. Just before to that, let's quickly launch a machine. So commands wise, we started with ls command with the -l option and -A option we have seen. And after that, the pwd command to see where are we, the current working directory or present working directory. And the cd command we have seen. So to navigate from one location to another location, you give cd and the location, it will be taken you to that location. And after that, we have seen is a touch command to create a file and rm command to remove a file. And in touch, by the way, we have seen -f and -r options to forcefully remove a file, and -r is to be used when you actually remove a directory. And after that, cp command we have seen. So cp a file and the source and destination, and -r to when you're copying a directory. And we have seen is mv to rename a file and as well as move the file from one location to another location. After that, so we started dealing with the content of the file, which is a cat command to see all the content in the file. So, but the content can be more and more, which you can filter by getting last lines or top lines by tail and head commands. And after that, you can also go for searching a particular word, by the way, and get only those lines on the screen. So the grep command, and you also have AWK command to make it a column-based filtering. So this is what we discussed. And finally, we also talked about VIM editor. Basically, it's a VI only, right? So, and how do you create a file with VIM editor? As I mean, if when you don't have the file, or if the file is already there, how do you modify the file? Is what we have seen in VIM. Along with that, so we have seen some commands from SCD also as a command line option. Rather than opening the VIM and all, with SCD, you can modify the existing file in a better way or in more automated way. So that is a widely used command later for us than VIM in automation. So we'll start automation very soon. Okay, once the project is completed. So that's where, so here, if you see this, after Linux, we're here, we'll go with the project. And after this, immediately the automation will come. When the automation will come and all, so here, when the automation will come, the here will be more using towards SCD command. Okay, until here, we have discussed in our last session. Let's continue to the learning about next more commands. Any questions before starting on those commands? Okay, all right. So the next is a command line browser. Now, being a, or first before to that, I should connect to our new box. I'm there. Now, the first command we are going to talk about today is curl command, which is command line URL, which is a command line browser. Now, being a DevOps engineer, so you need to be checking the applications which is running in the system. So maybe locally running some commands and to determine the things are working or not working, or okay. So that to be on the command line. When someone says that something is not working, you log into the machine and you do the curl to the same server, okay, which is there to check the things are working, not working, and things like that. Okay, so that is where the curl command will come into picture. So curl is like any other browser you have. Okay, it will help you in downloading the content. Okay, but Google Chrome and all, or Firefox, these kind of browsers is more like a UI browsers, but this is a command line browser, and it will show you the raw content. But the browser which you get it on the UI, so they are going to convert your command code into the graphical kind of a thing. So what I'm meaning to say is, you went ahead and you, okay, let's say www.google.com, you're thinking this is the content you got from Google server. No, you go for view page source. This is the actual content which you got it from the Google. But however, your UI browser is actually trying to understand it and trying to represent like this. Now, if I go to the command line browser here, and if I have curl, if I give www.google.com, so then what I will get it is the actual raw content. So not the graphical way. You see this? This is the same content, whatever here you got it here. Okay, so that's the difference you will see. You'll see the raw content. And sometimes, okay, so that content can be a readable content as well. It's okay. So for an example, if it is a readable content, so how can I get a readable content? For an example, let's take this page only. So we have that readme file. If I go for raw file, now let's say this is the content, by the way, this is the URL. Now, if I go to the command line and give this, so this content is what we got it, by the way, from there. It's readable. So you can see this. So the same content, whatever you see there, it's coming here. Now it is readable for you, maybe, right? So that is where, the content may be, okay, a readable content, or it can be some HTML content you may not be able to read, but it's a content, right? So the curl command is actually going to help you in getting the content of that particular URL, like any other browser. Okay, so that's how it is. And the next is, like any other browser, the curl command also supports downloading a file also in your Chrome also. You will browse, and maybe when you click on something, it will download as well, right? So here also you can download something, but rather than clicking on all, you have to tell curl command to download that. So for an example, what is this an example here? So which is telling curl, and there is a URL. We are giving a URL. So you can see this is the URL of the file that I wanted to download. And downloading as a file name, I'm giving the file name. File name is our choice. For an example, sorry. So the curl like this. Now, rather than the this file name, I can also give something like, okay, like this. It's okay. The file will get downloaded. So ls-l to show you that particular file. The file is there, and it is some 21 MB size of file. Okay. If you're interested in size also, H is another option which will help you in as a human readable format, human size, as you can see. So just 2 MB, not 20 MB. So just 2 MB file. Okay, you downloaded the file. The file name is your choice, and you are giving -o, small o, and you are giving your file name. So even in Windows also, it is the same thing. So for an example, you go to the same Apache, like let's say http://apache.org. So if I go to the download, now there is a file here. Now right click, if I say that, so save link as, they will ask you what file name you wanted to save. This is the same operation that we did it on the curl now. So while downloading, I'm choosing my own file name. Or else, if I don't want to choose my own file name, so then rather than this small O, you give capital O. If I click on, if I go to the browser, if I click on this file, automatically some file is downloaded. You see this? Automatically some file is downloaded. So that's where, if I give capital O, now whatever is the file is supposed to be downloaded, downloads as that particular file name only. Okay. Simple. So you can see this. This is the file name that this link is offering. It will also store it in the same file name. All right. So this is how the curl command will work. So curl command, you have a URL means you browse it, and from the browsing output, you will understand. Sometimes the content may be just a readable content only. Okay. And the next is you can also download something using. You can also download something by using curl command, okay, by passing the URL. While downloading, you can give your own file name or let it be like a default file. Anything should be fine. Okay. So just before taking the questions, so there is one more thing. So the files which you are downloading, by the way, is a compressed files. So there's a single file, which is a tar file, which is a Linux native archive format, like a zip for Windows. Okay. It's a native for Linux and Unix, by the way. Now, if I wanted to extract the content of that, so then how do I do that? So tar command, so tar-x for extract, and file, I'm having a file name. So Apache, you do this. So then what happens? It extracts and created a folder. Okay. Or else if I have some zip format, so something like this, you have a zip format. Okay. So now I'll copy this link address and curl hyphen capital O, I have like this. Now, if I have a zip file, okay, so then how can I do that is unzip and the file name, then it will unzip, by the way. So you get the unzipped folder. So now most of the time, the archive or the files which you are downloading, either it can be a tar file, which is native to Linux, or a zip file native to Windows, but still you can unzip as well by using two different methods. So if it is a tar-xf. If it is a zip, unzip command, a history command, and I can see the commands which I executed. So you can see this tar-xf for extract and unzip command to unzip a file. So this is about browsing and downloading and extracting the files. Clear? Does it make sense? Any questions? Any questions, confusions?
Hey Raghu, hi.
Yeah.
So why these two formats? Like these are two different extensions, right? So the tar and unzip zip file, right?
Mhm.
So these are the two separate zipping options for compressing options for files.
Yes, these are two archive methods, archive algorithms.
Okay. And okay, I just saw one video yesterday. I was just scrolling through the Linux commands.
Mhm.
There was one command which says tar hyphen x vzf. So is that
Mhm.
something different?
No, same only. So he is unnecessarily, whoever is teaching, he is teaching unconsciously.
No, actually, that was a cheat sheet.
That's what whoever has written that cheat sheet
Mm-hmm.
has written not clarity, right? So now if I have this folder, okay, so if I remove this, so this is where I'm talking about the consciousness. So now tar space hyphen xvzdef. Okay, v is just only to show you the display, by the way, like what all the files, like unzip was showing by default that what is it extracting. Tar will not show. So you're doing this. So now if I give this, by the way, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting the same, I'll get the same extraction. Now without that also I got it, right?
Yeah, correct.
So that means he was using an unnecessary option which was not needed.
And is that something that we need to use? Like, do we need to use the GZ format or zip format? Like download files. Which one should we use?
No, it's about the same. See, some software they'll give only zip, some software they'll give only tar format. So it
Mm-hmm.
is a type of software which is available on the, which is available from the vendor. They give in different compression methods of their comfort, by the way, right?
Correct. Okay.
So when you download, by the way, these are the two options which you see. I told you both the ways. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
how do you, when you download, how do you extract them?
All right, got it. Thanks, Raghu.
So with Linux, by the way, so this subconscious way of executing the commands is widely seen by the people because it's not only like, I mean, not only that he may have a reason for keeping it. I wouldn't much comment on that. Okay, so but lot of people generally in the Linux, by the way, so they by heart the commands rather than understanding the commands. Okay, which is a very uh, I mean, for a long time it will work, by the way, and suddenly sometimes that options will not work. Then they'll realize that okay, so what is the importance of that particular option? So that's where I always telling, like, be conscious around the Linux. Don't blindly execute the things because these are all production machines. That blindness of learning shouldn't come into picture at all. So when you have some option, question, okay, what is this option? Why it is being used? Whether it really need to be used or not. Okay, so because there's also a general saying in the production environments that you will save your job by not working, but you may lose your job by working actually. So that means with curiosity you went ahead and wanted to do something on the production machine which caused some damage, which eventually can you know uh, become a bad mark to your career, rather than okay, so the person who is sitting next to you, maybe he's enjoying by watching a movie, his life is saved, right? So I have seen enough incidents or a few incidents also that, by doing something, okay, so you'll always be into a problem. So without consciously, you should not do that. Okay, be very conscious, and that's fine, right? So that's what I'm saying. Just be conscious. These commands and all, a lot of people just remember by hearted the commands and being using it. At least it's time for you, to come out of that, and always you read it. When you read it, by the way, you read it properly rather than reading the command which is offered by someone. Now that command, okay, maybe you got the command, but the options and all, read the document manual page we talked about, right? So that's where it is. Now, why he has used just since the discussion came about the tar command JED option is, so here there is a GJED option. Okay, tar is just an archive. This doesn't apply any compression. Now you need a compression, so you require a certain algorithm. So here they are using something called as gunzip. Okay. Now this GJED, that is the reason he used JED option. But some places you will see BJED2. Okay. Now for BJED2, you have to use XVJF. Okay. For an example, if you go for a tar manual page. Okay. So now here for JED compression methods. Yeah. So you use -JED if it is a gunzip format. Okay. So -J for bzip2 format, like you're getting here, you know, bzip2 and all. And xjet is also there something that xjet also you have some other option that it is there, hyphen capital J you will use. So these are all the three common compression methods that TAR will allow you to, do a combination, by the way, these three. Now, what you are doing is he's taking an extra mile step and telling that I wanted to extract a gunzip file, but you don't need to do that. Okay. So that TAR guy is already aware of what he is extracting. Okay. He knows that that's a zip file and he will extract it. If it is a XZ file also, bzip2 file also, he will simply extract it. Okay. We really no need to go and, exclusively guide him to do his work. Okay, so here you got it. Now tar space hyphen x, hyphen x f, you give that. He still do the job, but he's telling that bj2 is not, software is not there in the system. So that's where he's not able to extract. So just let me install that software also. Libbj2. Let me find out. So this command you'll see in maybe tomorrow session. Like how do you install another? Now this archiving software, not archiving software, like compression software is not available. The library is not there in the system, that we need to take care of it. Okay, when the library is there, now it can use that library and extract it. So that is not there. Now, overall, anyhow, you already got the answer. I mean, that question, whatever it's been raised. So you already got the answer. So by just using the X for extraction and F telling the file name. Okay. So then, and then dot, okay, bj2 is there. Automatically, it is applying that particular extraction method. So this machine, we took a very small machine. That's where it's a bit slow. Okay, all right. So now if I go and give tar-xf bj2, you really no need to give -j option. He is smart enough already. So that's where while he is smart, why I need to override his smartness. I don't want to do that. So that's where I did not give any option. Okay, so that's the thought process, nothing more than that. So giving that is not really changing anything. Okay, so that is the thing. So now let's say since this is now bj2 format. Now if you learn the -z option, now what you do, so simply you go and give jet option. So jet option will tell you, hey, there is a problem, right? So because it is bjet2, so the cheat should tell that, this is for X, for this option, which is a gz, or this option should be used for bjet2. Then at least if that knowledge is given, that's okay. Otherwise, this is okay. So mostly you'll find out, gz format, whoever is compressing with tar generally, or zip file you'll find. That's okay. Yeah, I think we got the context. Any other questions? Okay. Cool. So that comes to the mostly done with the Linux basics. We'll conclude that with the concept, which is a pipe symbol. Okay. Now, pipe symbol is, we already talked about how do we combine the commands, right? So combining the commands with semicolon between two commands, double ampersand, so between logical and logical R, and also what we talked about is double pipe symbol, which is R, by the way. So that means now here second command will be executed irrespective of your first command is successful or not, doesn't matter. So first command will be executed, then second command will be executed. But whereas here, the second command will be executed only if the first command is successful. And here, the second command will be executed only if the first command is failure. Okay, this is the logic we talked about. Now, here, the next thing is your second command will be executed, and first command after second command will be executed with the pipe symbol. But there is no logic for them, by the way. But there is another dimension to that is, so the command output of first command, now you are going to combine the commands of command 1 pipe command 2. Okay. Now the combination of the first command, or not combination. So the command output of first command will be sent as an input to the second command. The outputs and inputs you are dealing now. The first command output is now sent as input to the second command. Okay. For an example, here is an example given. So cat/etc password, you have a file. Okay. All right. So you are able to see the cat command with all the content, but however, you're piping it, and grep you're asking to search for a root. Okay, this is the one. And also, since you already went through certain commands, let me also explain that every command does not actually able to handle pipe symbol or pipe command. Okay, for an example, there is a file called as this file. Okay, so there is a file, this file. Now, if I give rm-f, okay, what we are expecting, so the file will be removed because ls Raghu will give the file name as this one, and rm-f file name you come, right? So, but the file is not removed. Is the output. Okay, file name is the output, and rm expects the file name, rm-f. So I gave it, but still file is not deleting. Now, what is this means, by the way? So pipe symbol, you can't blindly go and use it. Okay, pipe has a limitation, or pipe doesn't have a limitation. The combination of the commands we are using, commands has a limitation that some commands doesn't accept the input from the pipe symbol. Okay, so there are handicapped commands you can consider. Okay, so rm command is one of that. So it doesn't accept the input from the pipe symbol, like any other command which you are aware, like grep command, it was handling it. Rm command is not handling it. Now, in such scenario, okay, how do you do that? Is you take another command help, which is called as xargs command. Okay, so xargs is going to do is what is now xargs actually, it has a left hand side. There's a left hand side and right hand side. So two things are there. Now xargs is in between. Now what it will do is it will take the input from the pipe and take the command from the right hand side. So load inside into it and execute the command as is. Okay, inside xargs, it is actually doing the job. So now ls, if you give that file, whatever I'm looking for is gone. So so that's where, okay, so generally, like your every command will not be accepting a pipe symbol, by the way. For an example, tomorrow a use case also I'll tell you. So for an example, so now my script is there, something like that. Okay. Don't bother about what I'm doing it here. Okay. So here is, so something like, bash script. So there is nothing coming in. Okay. So, but if I give, XYZ, it is displaying XYZ. Okay. If I give XYZ 1, 2, 3, I'm getting XYZ 1, 2, 3. Now what I'm expecting, I'm going to give this XYZ 1, 2, 3 as an input. For an example, if I give ls of this file to give that particular one, and pipe, what I'm expecting, okay, I am expecting that this output will come and bash should be loading that input, right? But nothing is happening. Now what I have to do? There is a xargs. So xargs, if you do, now xargs will do the same job like what it is doing with rm. So left hand side, it will accept the input from the pipe. Right hand side, what is the script is given, it loads and do that. Okay. Most commonly widely used scenario for you for xargs is, bridging whenever you have a requirement of getting the output from some command and you give that input as a input to your script, by the way, you end up giving using xargs. But also some of the commands which you learned is rm command. So what you need to understand is most of the commands about pipe symbol, but there you need to understand there are commands won't support rm command, won't support the pipe symbol. Rm is one of that, by the way, which you have learned so far. So always when you use pipe symbol, you always need to have the consciousness saying that, okay, this command is going to accept it. If it is not going to accept it, xargs is something you have to rely on. So that's about the pipe symbol. Any questions?
Hey Raghu, in that kind of scenario, can we say like we can use xargs for in the pipe always to make sure that it will not fail?
No, for every command, it's an additional burden, right? So if it is not possible, you go and use it. That's what generally
So
will.
is there any documentation where you can find like these commands are like accepting the pipe and this command is not, something like that? So like we cannot like like what I'm saying, like we cannot learn by heart, like okay, we know like the RM is not using it for now, so we use xargs for there are some other commands which is not using, right? So how do we know that?
See, I don't think so. Every command out there will write a documentation like that. So the better way is trial and error method. You will use a command by knowing it, right? So that's where you always have that consciousness. Most of the time it works. If it is not working, you know why it is not working. It's as simple as that. It's an edge case, to handle for everything.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So we just categorize the commands of, Linux as two parts generally, like Linux basics so far. That means these commands can be done by any user generally, can be executed by any user who logs in. But there are certain commands, okay, who need to be executing as with some sort of a admin privilege, by the way. So such commands or such admin activities has been, kept in another set, by the way. So maybe end of the day, it's all commands only, but we just categorized as for the sake of categorization. Now there is a Linux administration section. Now in the administration section, so these are the ones which we have. And out of this, there is also something called as network and disk management, so which we will see it later, but we'll go through these particular things for now. Okay. So the next is process management. And from here, you're doing an activity like a little administrative user. If you are a little administrator user only, you'll start be able to doing these things. Okay, so that's the idea. And to start with, there is something called as process management. Even in your Windows, you have a task manager. Even in my Mac OS, there should be something called as activity monitor. Okay, so it will tell that which process is which process is running and all, right? So maybe I don't want some process. For an example, I don't know, here something, no, can't I close it? Yeah. So I can put a quit and all, you can end the process, right? In Windows also, I think a task manager, right click, end process, something is there. Okay. You will be able to kill the process. Here also it is the same thing. Now every command you are running is going to create one process in the system. Okay. And every process is going to allocate one number in the system. So that is called as a process ID. Okay. Every process in the system, every process that you run in the command line is going to create one process ID in the system. So that is called as our ID in the system, that is called as process ID, PID. Now, if you want to see the list of process, by the way, there's a PS command. PS command is telling that, you executed one command called as PS. There's one number allocated. or when you already logged in, there is a shell, something called a shell. So which is 1318 process, your terminal. This is the terminal process. And PS is the command you just now executed. Now PS is showing only the two process which my user belong to. And whereas let's say if I log in to another session, I open another session also to the user. You can open another putty and open another session. Now there is something called as PS-U is there. Okay. So PS-U. So that means now there are two. If I give still PS, I get the same output. But whereas I want all the process which belongs to me. So that means PS-U, I logged in as a EC2 user. So the process which all belong to me, by the way, I want to get it. Now I'm getting two process, by the way. So this bash one and this guy side bash one. So you're getting two processes now. Along with PS command, which you executed, that also held one process in the system. That information also is showing. But yeah, these are the two processes which is there in the system. Now the PS command, either it is showing your process which are in the command line, which in your terminal which is running, or else all the process which belong to that user, by the way. But there are a lot of process in the system, so which is running. So if you want to know all the process, PS-E, by the way, right? So PS-E will show every process in the system. Now there are many processes in the system. It is showing everything. Now in this PS also, you require little more fields. Okay. So you want a field rich, more fields, by the way. So -F option you can give. So PS-EF is a very common option that we use because here you get many more options. Okay. So you can see this that PS-EF is showing which user it belongs to, UID, which user that process belongs to, and what is the process ID. And every process has a parent also, parent process ID. Okay. Now this is also very important for you to understand because when the system is starting, by the way, so there are two processes which will burn. Okay. Two processes will burn when the system is starting up. The process number one, process number two. Okay. So they are the first childs of the system. So that's where they are point to 0. There is no such process called as 0, but just to represent a number, they are using a number 0. But these are the first two process of the system. Now every process, okay, every process will either end up with number 2 or number 1. Now process who are actually having a parent number 2, by the way, these are all the core system process. Okay. Core system process which you will not be able to touch. Now you go back to the knowledge which I was talking about. Yeah. So we were talking about a Unix box, right? A Unix box, what we are telling, okay, a software. So hardware came from the same vendor, right? Now, after that, this is a Unix, by the way. So this is what we talked about. Now, after Linux, by the way, what we were talking is, so hardware will be manufactured by any guy. So the idea of Linux is always that. And after that, I already told you, right? So GNU Linux story, right? Now, there is a software, okay, who is made by vendors like Red Hat and all, okay? Red Hat like vendors who makes the software. Now, there is a layer who has broken the software hardware layer. So that is where the core of the system, which I called it as Linux or kernel. Linux is not an operating system. You need to understand that. So some bit more detailed information. Okay, Linux is not an operating system. Linux is a program or Linux is a software that actually breaks the, that can make any software that can run on any hardware. Okay, this is where the Linux. Now, but these two together, okay, is shipped as one OS. This is an operating system. Okay, since it is Linux, we can call it as Linux OS. But Linux as a word, it actually represents to this, core of it. Now, when you start an operating system, this part is there, this part is there. So Now here, this is the process number 1. So process number 1, and this guy is the process number 2. Now, when you start an operating system, so this guy you will never be able to manage. You can't manage this guy. You can only manage this guy. So what is the software written by Red Hat? Only those programs you will be able to manage, even as an administrator. This guy you will not be able to manage. So that means every process, see, even in Windows also the same thing. You log in as administrator. So there are some Windows process you can't even end, by the way. Give a try. If you're an administrator, some of the Windows process in the task manager, you will never be able to end them. Okay, even though you're administrator. Okay, because those are the core of the operating systems, which you can't touch. Okay, which you can't manage. So that's where, okay, here also, the process number 1 and process number 2 will be there. Now, all the child process who is having a parent number 2, these are all the process you will not be able to manage. But here and there, 1 is there, you will be able to manage. And you take any process, they end up with 1 only. So for an example, if you take, I executed a ps-ef command, right? So my process ID was 14172. Who is its parent? 1318. If you go to 1318, who is its parent of 1317? Now we go to 1317, who is its parent? 1306. Now you go to 1306, who is its parent? 1248. If you go to 1248, it ended up with 1. Okay, you ended up with 1. So that means all the process, okay, which are ending up with 1, you'll be able to manage it. That means you can end the process. Others who is going with the 2, you can't manage. So that's where, so over here, now I'm just seeing the list of process, but however, I can also go and start, managing this process and managing the process by using kill command, by the way. So for an example, I take a, for demonstration purpose, I will take another command called as a sleep command. Sleep will not do anything at all. If I give sleep 1, so see, it will simply sit for 1 second. If I give sleep 5, it will simply sleep for 5 seconds. Some process just to show that it is running. I wanted to have some simulation. So now let's say if I go for sleep 500 enter. So now ps-ef grep for sleep. Okay. So now you can see this. You're getting the process as this one. Now if I go and give kill, there's a kill command to end the process. And if I end the process, it is ended. Done. All right. So this is how we will stop a process. Not stop actually. Stop is different. Ending is different. We're actually ending it. We're not stopping it. Okay. So stop means it can start any point of time later. Okay. That's not the concept we are here. We're literally ending the process. Same like Windows only. Ending the process. But also in some cases, I would like to bring a scenario that just for demonstration purpose. So there are scenarios where you'll not be able to kill a process, by the way. Okay. For example, ps-ef. Now, rather than going with everything, you can go for a grep, by the way, sleep. So you can narrow down. Tap and okay. All right. Now ps-ef grep for sleep. Now you can see that there is a process which is running. Now here, I will try to kill this process. What we are assuming, the process is killed. It is not giving me any information that it couldn't kill also. Okay. So now ps-ef grep for that, but the process is still running. Now I will go and kill that. I'll go and kill that. It won't get killed. A scenario. I'm just simulating a scenario. Now, what are the reasons that you can't end the process? Because the process may be ignoring your instruction, or the process is completely hung, by the way. Okay, process is completely hung. So certain process will ignore your instruction. Let's say you take a database. Okay. Now you're trying to kill a process of a database. Now database, there is a lot of job it has to do when you do a kill, by the way. So previously sleep command, when you're doing it, just coming out, it doesn't have any responsibility. But you take a database as a software, it has a lot of things loaded in the memory that it needs to transact that information to the disk before it is quitting. it has to do a lot of work. So sometimes it may take 10 minutes, 20 minutes out of the time for the database to come down. So even though you, in the meantime, you send the instructions, that guy is consciously ignoring you. But my requirement was, I want to forcefully kill that guy. Okay, now I want to send an instruction to the process. Okay, fine, you're not. And also there is a third reason that it can be literally hung also. First reason is not third reason actually, in a way that the first reason is it is ignoring. Okay, so because it is doing some job, or else second one is it is completely hung, by the way. It is not even responding to you. So in those cases, what is the scenario that you'd be going is, I know that what I'm doing, I'm forcefully killing a process, or I want to do a forceful kill, by the way. Now what I'll do is kill -9 option you'll give. Okay, so now ps-ef pipe grep for sleep, that process is killed. But when you are using kill -9, you have to be very, very cautious. You are knowing and killing that process, by the way. So because once the process is killed, what all the information that it is holding will be lost. Okay, so that is the reason whenever you're killing the process, you be very conscious that, while killing this process, there can be an effect as well. If you know that there won't be any effect, you always go and try to view -9. This is the last option that you should consider. That's not the first option you should consider. I see a lot of people start with the -9. Why you need to do the forceful kill in the very first place? Send a normal instruction, wait for it to come out. If it's not coming out, understand why it is not coming out. Okay, so then finally you don't have any option. You are ending up with only a forceful kill. You do a forceful. Okay, so this is how do you list down the process? How do you kill the process? How do you end the process? Okay, clear? Any questions? Cool. So there are some scenarios I have written. What happens if you kill a parent process? Just explore this. Now let's try a command that that can fail with some error, by the way. Okay, we have been doing that. Now let's say ps-ef. I have some process. I'm trying always killing the process which belong to me only, but I wanted to kill the process which is belong to some other user. For an example, there is something called as a cronid, which is another user process which is in the system. So I will try to kill that particular process. So then what will tell me? Operation not permitted. Okay, now till now you logged into the system as with your user, and but you are actually trying to kill some other user process. You know that what you're doing. You wanted to kill, that's for sure. And you know why you're killing also, let's say, whatever it is. But you're trying to kill it, you don't have permission for that. Okay, for an example, even I log into the system. So there's an application running. Application usually runs as another user. I am killing the application because I wanted to kill the application. Okay, so that I can start it again, whatever the reason it is. Okay, now if I wanted to do that. So my privileges I have is not enough, by the way. So that means you logged into the system as a normal user. So then what you need to do is you need to log in as an administrator, by the way. Now, who is an administrator user in the Linux operating system is root, R-O-O-T, root username. So there is a cat/etc password, which is a file we have been playing around. This is a list of users in the system. Now there is a user called as ROOT. So he's the administrator. Same your administrator user in Windows equivalent, by the way, root, by the way. Now I wanted to take admin privilege or admin job and do that. So that means I need to log out and log into the system as a root user. But in companies, even though we know the root password, we might not directly log in as a root user. If everyone is taking a side door, how I'll come to know who is, like, let's say, if everyone is actually using the same root username and password, how do I come to know that, who has done some damage? System is tracking everything. Okay, system literally tracks everything. Now everyone using the same username. How do I track that? Who is the guy? Okay, came and executed this. No, I can't track it. So that's where you always log into the system with your username only. Even though we know the root username, okay, we won't log in. And even the root logins are generally disabled to the systems as a per standards also. Okay, and that username, that root user login will be used in some extreme maintenance cases only. Okay, so not everywhere. So that's where, okay, so we usually that, okay, user login is not permitted. Root user login is not permitted. No, you always log in with a normal user as you're given one username and password to log into the system. You always log in that. But there is some other process which is running by some other user. I need to manage that. Now there is a gap here, right? Now we are bridging that gap. We are bridging that gap. So bridging that particular gap is by using privilege escalation tools, and there are wide variety of privilege escalation tools. Out of sudo, actually, okay, so sudo power broker centrify, sudo only will tell who are the alternatives there are. I gave the link. Out of many tools, by the way, sudo is the default one in the Linux operating systems. It comes as a default. So, and a lot of people also widely use sudo. Okay. So that means you can take the help of sudo and you'll be able to do that. But in order to use sudo, you should have a sudo privilege. A privilege should be given to you. Now that privilege also will be centralized login, centralized given somewhere. Okay. So now that means you log into the system, assume you already have a privilege. An organization, assume you already have a privilege. If you don't have a privilege, how to get the sudo access and all is a different story. Okay. I don't want to get there. Okay. But most of the time, okay, since you're an engineer who is operating, you'll have a sudo privilege to at least to manage your application, by the way. To that extent, you will be having it. So that's where, okay, so here we are going to use sudo and let's kill that particular process. So now the previous process which I couldn't kill, as I log in as a EC2 user, I already have privilege on the system. Okay, it's already pre-given. Even in the organization also, you logged in, assume you logged into the system, by the way, you have privilege. And that's where you're using sudo and you're killing that particular process. That process is gone. 951. That process is gone. So you wanted to do an operation as an administrator. Now the sudo is doing what? It literally loading your command, but behind the scene, it is executing as an administrator. Okay. So that's where most of the times for admin commands will have sudo and then we'll do the job. So just to give you an understanding, we already know the kill command, we use the kill command, but further now, whatever the commands we are going to learn require administrative privileges. So that's where we always end up using sudo. If you don't have sudo privilege, for an example, okay, something like that, you'll get a warning like this. Okay, if you don't have a privilege, you generally get an error. Yeah. So you can see this. If I'm giving sudo cat/sudoers file, and sorry, the user OS is not allowed to execute this command as a root user on this system. Okay, so that's where okay, you will see an error. So since I'm having it, you're not seeing that error. Okay, so that's how we are going to deal with sudo. And if you're really interested about how do you add the privilege as a sudo, I already gave a link that how to give sudo access in the system. Okay, which I'm not interested in that part at this point of time. I mean, because this is not the job you do in the organization, by the way, because this is the setup, whatever they show, which is to deal with one single system. But you may be dealing with multiple systems. Now that means there is a concept of central sudo. Okay, we always deal with the central sudo concept, so that whom to have access, where to have access is all predefined somewhere in the central systems. Okay, which essentially parts to the IT side of the work in the organization. Okay, so when you join the organization, so there is someone who has created your username, password, right? So that is an IT team, by the way, and IT team holds certain things. Who has to have which privileges and all will be defined at the group level somewhere. Okay, so they're all done on the IT job level. I don't want to really go and do each and every system configurations, by the way, right? So that's how the that's how the world operates, by the way. You need to understand that. Okay, that is where I'm not touching that concept. Consciously, I'm not touching that concept. In a company, enterprise organization, you will not go and configure your system, right? Okay, so it won't happen. Okay, so generally certain better ways are there to do. So there's a central sudo. You get the access. I mean, the sudo will be synced from central. So you add locally also. You may not be allowed also, right? So it has to add it to the centralized place. So that's where that won't work. And the sudo has certain challenges generally, like in a fine-grained rules, something like that. Okay, so that's where some third-party tools will come into picture. So which is like Power Broker, Simplify. So these tools generally you'll find, in enterprise organizations. Okay, big companies. So who have very core systems that a lot of people shouldn't touch and all. So they'll be very extra careful on the commands which are getting executed. But you can't avoid executing the commands. The problem is you have to execute. Someone has to execute the commands to manage the machine. Okay, but whom to execute, whom not to execute, what to execute, what not to execute is a very important criteria. Okay, so that's where these additional tools come into picture. So that's all about sudo. Any questions? Okay. So the next is I'll go with the something called as user management. Now, why this user management coming into our job is because we use our servers to run the applications, right? Now, this application is going to be a process in the system. Okay. Now, this process need not to run as a normal user. Sorry, wrongly read. So these processes need to be run as a normal user rather than the root user for security best practices. Okay. So the security best practices tells that you should not run a program as a root user. You should always run as normal user. Now to run our application as a normal user, okay, we need to know, we need to add a user on that system and we need to run with that user. Okay. Now some companies, even this common user also, they will take to the centralized setup only. Okay. Now, some companies, they will not maintain the central, these functional accounts, we call it up. These functional accounts will not be maintained at the centralized place. They will maintain locally. Okay. So anyhow, we don't have that central concept in the lab, by the way. So I still need, something to be set up on the local. So that's where we are going with adding a user locally on the system. And I mean, you can say that many even enterprise organizations also, they will have the functional user set up to the local only. Okay. So functional users even going to the central is, may not be, feasible because of other reasons as well. Too many users to manage and all. So some IT challenges are there. I don't want to get into their problems. Okay. So, but assume that, so you are running an application in the system. So there should be a user in the system. And that's where we are learning the user management concept. But this user will not have a login access. If this user have a login access, everyone will log in with that user only. Username, password. Okay. And again, we can't track who has done what, right? So that means always you log into the system with your user, okay, and manage the process, okay, of other user. That's it. And that process need to run as another user. And we're talking about how to add a user. This user will not have passwords. This user will not have logins, nothing. You simply run that process as that user. That's it. Nothing more. Okay, so that's where we're going to talk about a command called as user add. Okay, so I'm giving sample. Okay, now what it is telling is a permission denied. Hey, you don't have a permission. Of course, it's an admin activity. I'll not have permission. So then what I do, I have a privilege. I'm using the privilege. So sudo user add sample. Now whether the user is there or not, how do you check? By using id command. So this is added. So now let's say id demo, that is not there. Demo is, there is no such user, it is telling. So id space sample, it is adding a user. But if you look little more detail, by the way, so this id command is telling a bit more information. Now you asked to add a user, but it also added a group also. That means by design of this operating system, any user can be added only if a group is there. So the user should be must and belong to a group. Okay. Now user add actually would have worked in a way that when you actually trying to add a user, it would have failed saying that, hey, give me the group name. But what user add as a behavior they're doing is, so they are going ahead and creating a sample group first, and then creating a sample user in that sample group. Okay. There's also a word for this, I don't recall now. So this kind of groups is self groups, by the way. There's a word actually in the voice terminology. I am not able to recall it, but yeah. So there's a concept for that. Okay. So whenever you are trying to add a user, the user add command behaves in such a way that if you don't give any group, it will go and add that user into that particular group. Okay. So for an example, sudo group add DevOps. Okay. Now sudo user add -g. I wanted to add a user to the DevOps. Let's say John I am giving. Now the John user has been created, okay, into a group, DevOps group. You added a user, but mapped into a group to him is this group, right? So, but if you don't give that, then what happens is a group with the same username will be created and allocated, which is okay for us. Okay, which is generally okay. So that is how we are going to create a user and we will run the applications with that user. Now, how to run the application with that user and all is actually a project knowledge that will come from the project, because the project is actually going to, our learnings will try to implement in the project. Our learnings tells that you should run the application as a normal user. Okay, so that's where we'll follow those particular standards. Our learning will be implemented. So that is how it is. And also I would like to, I'm not sure this is working anymore. Let's try to do some small work. This is a very small system. I don't know how it will behave, or it may be stuck also. I'm just trying to bring some process, which is very commonly known, widely used software. Apache Web Server is one of the widely used web server, or Apache Tomcat. Okay. Or MariaDB, I mean, MySQL. It's a database, by the way, MariaDB. These are some of the widely used ones. Now, I just installed those softwares behind the scene. That's okay. PS-EF pipe grep for HTTP. Okay, you can see that HTTP process is running. So those are running as Apache user. They are not running as a root user. There's a first process which is running as a root user. So it is there is some reason for that, but that's okay. So it started with root user, but remaining process is being tagged to its own user. Now PS-EF grep for Tomcat. So now you can see this Tomcat is running as a Tomcat user. So PS-EF Maria. So you can see this MariaDB is running as a MySQL user. None of these softwares, your third-party software that you install in your system, okay, they are not running as a root user. They're consciously, they're standards, they're maintaining the standards. They have written the programs in such a way that, okay, so is always to run as a normal user, not as a root user. So that's where you need to understand any process that you start in the system, your applications and all, you should always run it as a normal. It's a very, very basic security norm that you follow in the OS world. It should always be a normal user, not a root user. So that's the idea. And that's about user add section. So you mostly end up adding users only. That's it. Okay. For the scope of running your application. No passwords to that, no logins to that. And that's where I'm not touching that area. Okay. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah, and also that comes to end of what I wanted to talk for today. The remaining topics, I will take it up in tomorrow's session. So tomorrow we have 5 more topics: package management, service management, permission management, and disk management and network. Mostly I'll prefer to take next later session only, because network is such an important concept. We'll see time tomorrow. Okay, I don't think so time permits. Network usually goes to the next week only, but I want because network is a very complex thing, or not complex, I would say. Network is the a very core of your your today's world, by the way. So when you actually talk about, let's say, Netflix micro services architecture, okay, Netflix microservices architecture, they will give you this diagram, by the way. So this is how each and every application is connected, by the way. So this is a platform diagram, okay? Or you take these services, easy to understand maybe. So how each service is connected to each service, they generated a diagram for that, okay? So like this. So even in one of the platform which I worked, by the way, so we generated one diagram. So I usually keep it somewhere here. So for one of the project on the platform side, where did I kept? Here it is. How application to application those are connected. So you can, we generated a same related diagram. So there are here is one data center, here is another data center, there's another data center, 3 data centers we have. Okay, so how systems are connected. So it's a web, by the way. So this is only a pure hardware level, or hardware, not hardware, like OS level, not application level, by the way. If I add application, it becomes much complex. Okay, so this is only like, so systems, how one system connecting to the other system. Okay, there are total 3 data centers, 2 data centers for high availability, a third data center for disaster recovery. So this is a platform. So this itself is having so much things, by the way. So it's many complex things. So you'll see a web bar like this. In the big companies, you generally follow. So Netflix, they're telling 2,000 microservices they're talking, right? So 1,000 microservices they're talking. These are all the diagrams. So if you look at the web, by the way, this is all connected over the network. Network becomes, quite complicated. This is the only complicated thing in the microservices world. Make the operations very tough is networking. Okay, it's a complex thing. Okay, so that's where you need to have foundations onto the network very well. So I'll usually take certain leisure time to explain little, put the basics of network. But also, like, there are a couple of sessions later also in the middle of the training also we'll have on the networking side. Okay. So that's where network management will take later. So the remaining management topics we'll try to cover in tomorrow. And that will be like, end of Linux that I wanted to cover for the first week. And that's all from my side for today. Any questions, please go ahead. If no questions, feel free to drop. Thank you. Any questions, please raise your hand.
Hey, hi Raghu.
Yeah.
As we just saw that we can create a user on a system, right?
Mhm.
So, uh, I mean, we can use that user to log into another application, or what exactly are we using that user for? For application management?
Yes. So if you see, that's what I shown, right? So some of the process, now for an example, here I'm running a database. To run the database, it is using a user MySQL. To
Right.
run a application software, so it is
Mm.
using Tomcat user. To run a web server, it is using Apache user. So you need a user to run a process. Process is always bound to certain user or bind to certain user. So you require a user to run the process. And there is always a default user called as root, but you shouldn't run the things as a root user for a security concerns. Okay.
Okay, and then can we also create a password for that user?
No, these users shouldn't have password because you shouldn't log into that user, but you need to run the application as that user.
Okay. No, no. In general, if
No,
we
no, no general. That users is functional users. Functional users will never have the password. Now, if the what is the risk of having the password? Let's say 10 people are there in your team. By the way, everyone knows that it's common username and password. Now, if everyone is logging into the same system as with a common username and password, one guy has done some mistake intentionally or unintentionally. How can I caught him? I can't caught him, right? So what is the operation he has performed? So you always need to log in as with your username and password into the system, and from there you will manage the process of other user. And okay, so that's where you'll always try to uh, able to control it or track it, not control, track it. Who is doing what on the system?
all right, yeah.
So same concept, right? If in the you're entering into a company, if everyone is using the same ID card, if someone asks me, hey, tell me who is coming at what time, I'll not be able to. Everyone should have their own identity. Yes or no? You're on mute.
Yeah, Raghu, yeah. Got it.
All right.
Raghu, yeah. So we can create a same user for a different process as well, right?
Yeah, if you wish to, yes.
Yeah, but as we see on the top, like the root and then Apache, but this ID is different, right? For each process. So this is like the process ID for a particular user. 15541, 15539.
Those are process, all tagged to Apache user, one user only.
Okay, so 15539 is the process, and 15538 after that row is
The
password for
parent
that.
is a
Right.
parent.
Okay, this is the parent one and this is the child.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Cool. So then let's meet in tomorrow session and we'll have the remaining management concepts. So since it is Linux and some people it is new, it's a concept, right? So it's going to take little time. So that's where we're going uh, bit slow maybe, or maybe for some people it is already fast. It's okay. So just settle down. For Linux, you need a lot of practice, so that you'll be able to do the next things very much faster. So let's meet in tomorrow and we'll continue. Okay, bye. Good day.